In the interest of time here, I want to welcome everybody to the Knowledge Education Series event presented by P&L Technology. The reasoning behind these webinars and this event is with technology constantly evolving and changing, it's fairly difficult as a business person to try and keep up to date with what is available and especially what the business benefits are. So we're hoping that these sessions can bring some clarity to some of the buzzwords and some of the items that are being discussed in the technology industry now. The topic we are covering today is cloud infrastructure services. How this will work is this is a listen-only event. If you do have any questions or comments, please go ahead and chat them in. We'll save some time at the end to address as many of these as we can. Following the session, we will introduce the next coming topic as well as when that will be, and hope that there is some continued interest in these sessions. Again, we hope you find this web series valuable and helpful to your business. The presenter today is Drew Embury. Drew is the Executive Vice President and Partner in P&L Technology. He helped establish the company back in 2004 and is continuing to assist in developing new technology strategies that can help local businesses. And with that, I'll hand things off to Drew.
Well, outstanding. Thanks, Steve, for the introduction. I took a look at the attendee list today, and we really have a record attendance, which really speaks, I think, a lot to the great topic we have today in cloud infrastructure services and really the amount of questions and curiosity by the business community. So let's get right into it. So what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to first start by defining cloud infrastructure services and discuss what do we mean when we hear the word cloud infrastructure services. We're going to discuss how to apply cloud infrastructure services to business challenges. We're going to discuss everybody's favorite topic, potential cost savings with cloud infrastructure services. And we're going to discuss some decision factors for your business, some things you need to look at, and some questions that need to be asked if you're thinking about deploying cloud infrastructure services. And we're going to look at a case study from a local business who has deployed cloud infrastructure services and kind of the thought process and the decision tree they went through when determining whether to bring this technology in or not. So let's go ahead and move on to defining cloud infrastructure services and what they are. So let's first start when we hear the word cloud. Let's talk about what we mean when we say that. For those of you that weren't able to attend any of our previous webinars, the term cloud refers to accessing computer power remotely over the internet. So this computer power is typically located in a large data center that could be across town or could be across the world, and is typically managed by a third party. So you as a business owner simply pay for the computing resources or the applications that you need, and typically on a monthly basis. So when we're talking about infrastructure, what we're talking about is all that stuff back there in your server room or your server closet. So we're talking about the core of your network. So things like servers, the software applications that run on those servers, such as your accounting or your customer relationship management software. We're talking about the backup systems and all the other things that your employees connect to do the things they need to do in their daily roles. So when we say cloud infrastructure service, we're kind of combining those two terms, and typically what we're talking about is moving your entire IT infrastructure to the cloud. So that would involve, instead of purchasing and maintaining and having a lot of servers and software located on your business premise, instead you'd be accessing all of your data, all of your software applications, files such as Microsoft Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, all of your email, on systems located in a remote data center, and accessing these from any computer that's connected to the internet. So a lot of companies will tell you that to be truly cloud, you need to use browser-based applications. So these are applications that run in a web browser, such as Salesforce.com or some of these other things that you're probably familiar with. But the problem is, for a lot of businesses, they've got Windows applications that run on a Windows PC that don't run in a browser that really work better for them, or they've got a lot of history with. They've got years worth of data in those applications. All the staff is trained and comfortable on those applications, and it's not really feasible or even desirable to move those to browser-based applications. So with cloud infrastructure services, you can take those applications, take those servers, take those infrastructures, and move those directly to the cloud and still have the familiar environment you're used to. And this is done by accessing those applications in the cloud using a remote display technology where, again, all the data is located in the data center and the processing is done on that remote cloud-based system, yet you simply see the display of the computer and all the software applications in a way that's very familiar to you and your staff. So let's talk a little bit more about the business applications of these cloud infrastructure services. So how do cloud infrastructure services address business needs? Well, the purpose is not necessarily, in all cases, just to bring new technology features to your business. Although many companies that we work with are looking to bring in new applications, new features, and new items like that from the cloud to streamline their business processes further, many others are really simply looking for an easier way to deploy and manage the technology they already use and they're already familiar with. But one of the main goals that many of the customers work with by going to cloud infrastructure services are real gains in productivity that can come about by making this move. And probably one of the top items at the list is the reduction in hassle that can occur from events, things such as an employee becoming infected with spyware. Because we aren't running or processing any of the applications or any of the data on the PC itself that the employee is using, the likelihood of those spyware and virus infections is greatly reduced or even eliminated in a lot of cases. Another really common scenario that comes up is a PC that crashes. It just fails some morning when an employee comes in and starts to use it, and it leaves that employee down while whoever's responsible for the IT scrambles to respond, scrambles to get it fixed. And the PC has to be repaired or potentially replaced if it's older and not able to be repaired. And then all the software applications have to be reloaded on the PC and reconfigured on it while the employee waits in an unproductive state. So with the cloud infrastructure services, since everything is done remotely, the PC is really demoted to being just an access device, and it can be very quickly swapped out with really any other PC that's available at the time. Another thing that companies really take advantage of when moving to cloud infrastructure service is the addressing of backups. How great would it be to never have to worry about backups again? Many of you on the call today are probably still using a tape-based backup system, which requires somebody to manually swap the tapes or the other removable media to ensure the system is protected. With all your data in the cloud, this is done by the cloud service provider automatically for you, and there's really nothing to have to worry about. Another big productivity gain that comes from moving your applications to the cloud is much easier updates of key applications. So you guys have probably all been through this scenario before. A new update comes out for an application that you use, say your accounting application or your CRM application, and you've got to get somebody out to test it, make sure it works. They have to go around to each PC and install that application. With the cloud, it can just be installed in one place, on that cloud server, and everybody instantly has access to the same version, the same update, with a lot less hassle. We can also do things in cloud, such as standardizing your Microsoft Office license, so everybody's always on the same version. In fact, you can even rent the Microsoft Office license, so you don't have to shell out, $300 or $400 every 3 or 4 years for new Microsoft Office licenses and upgrades and things like that, or you can just rent it on a month-by-month basis. Another big benefit of going to the cloud is really the ease of mobility. People are more mobile than ever, working from coffee shops and from home, and as business is really going 24 hours. With the cloud, you can work just like you're in the office from any PC that's connected to the internet. There's no VPNs or other steps required to get access. You simply access the cloud server just like you do from the office. Another huge gain that some of our customers have embraced by moving to cloud infrastructure service is the notion of multiple offices. A lot of our customers that have multiple offices tell us before they went to cloud infrastructure service that the employees in the remote office kind of felt like second-class citizens. They had slower computers. They had to access the files over the internet, over a VPN, and it wasn't very fast, and it was frustrating. And they had older PCs in the main office. So What the cloud infrastructure services can do is make your remote offices really function exactly like your main office and have the same speed, the same software applications, and the same benefits that everybody else gets. And then one of the big things that people typically don't think about until it's too late is really the improved backup and disaster recovery functions that are available by using cloud infrastructure services. So most cloud infrastructure services partners will have redundant hardware. They'll have a lot higher end systems than probably most businesses can afford the expense and difficulty of doing on their own. So with the cloud infrastructure services, you can piggyback on these investments in these redundant systems that your service provider has made and really take scenarios out of play, such as your server crashing or a piece of hardware on your site failing and taking down the entire company. And then, of course, in the case of the unthinkable, a fire, a flood, or tornado comes through and destroys your building, you can still simply access your entire IT environment from any place there's an internet connection. So it can really improve the disaster recovery plans for companies that deploy this technology. So now that we've looked about how cloud infrastructure services can be deployed to business needs, let's move on again to everybody's favorite topic, some potential cost savings with the cloud. So in a lot of ways, cost savings from the cloud have been a little overhyped in the media, in our opinion, and there's not always a huge immediate savings on your investment. But that doesn't mean that there aren't real savings to be had. It's just that many of the cost savings are operational or come over time, such as the reduced support needs and the hassles we looked at earlier, involving things that just aren't working. So a lot of the cost savings are around employee downtime, reduced hassles that they can save a significant amount of time over business. There are some reductions in hardware. As I mentioned earlier, there's not always immediate savings because what businesses are doing is they're converting those upfront big investments in buying servers and buying software into more of an operational investment over time where you're paying a monthly fee for your cloud infrastructure provider to run those services for you. But at the same time, there are some capital savings where there's no need to buy a new server every 3 to 4 years or invest in the labor for a technician to come out and upgrade it, and of course the hassles that come along with upgrades. Another big area of savings is the reduced need to upgrade the client PCs. Again, since all the processing is done on the server in the cloud, today under a standard client-server technology arrangement, really it is best practices to upgrade those PCs every 3 years or so. And companies that don't do that do run the risk of losing productivity because the software becomes out of date or the employees start to get frustrated and angry because their computers slow to a crawl. So with the cloud infrastructure services, because the processing isn't done locally, there's not the need to shell out for new PCs quite as often. We are seeing customers using cloud infrastructure services stretch out their PC buying cycles to 5 or 6 years or longer, which saves a lot of time and money. Another big benefit of the cloud infrastructure services is the ease of adding capacity as you grow. With a standard server that may be on site in your business today, there's situations arise where you kind of max out that server. You need to bring in a new application or your storage needs have grown, and really your only choice is to abandon that investment and purchase a bigger server to run those new applications or for that new storage. With the cloud infrastructure services, the server capacity, the storage space, and the memory can grow easily simply by asking your provider just to provision a little more storage, a little more memory, or a little more processing power. A very simple and easy way, an upgrade that can be done same day many times. So now that we've looked at some of the potential cost savings, let's go ahead and move on to some of the decision factors for your business. I kind of felt like we've covered a lot of the pros, but there are some other items we wanted to address today, and some things that can potentially trip up customers that they need to be aware of when looking at this technology. So what we've kind of found is one of the big decision factors on whether or not to look at these technologies is one of the triggers is typically when your current hardware or your current on-site servers are approaching their end of lifespan and a large new investment is required to keep your technology fresh and up to date. This often triggers the business people to say, well, let's take a fresh look at these cloud infrastructure services because we're looking at this $10,000 or $20,000 upgrade and see if it's right for our business. Another thing that we really caution people on when looking at cloud infrastructure services, it is not right for every single business. Some businesses that are very heavy into graphic designs or computer-aided drafting, so businesses like architectural companies or graphic design ad agencies and things like that, those companies may not be a great fit for cloud infrastructure services because the amount of data that needs to be pushed back and forth over that internet connection because of the heavy graphical or engineering nature may not work very well or give the experience that they want for those employees. As I mentioned before, with the cloud infrastructure services, we are very heavily reliant on quality internet access. So we need to take a really close look at that internet circuit and ensure there's plenty of very stable bandwidth available there for the applications to use, because if there's not, we may not be delivering, again, the experience to the end user that we're going to expect. Some bigger companies in this case may want to look at even bringing in redundant internet lines, and the reason for that is if the internet's not working, if somebody is digging in the neighborhood and digs up the internet line, then it's just like your server's down because you're not able to access that cloud virtual server over the internet. So in this day and age, it's a very solvable issue, but it's just something we need to take a real close look at. Another thing that we've looked at and we counsel businesses on when they're looking to go to cloud infrastructure services is we really want to make sure they're open to delivering a very standardized environment to their employees, a real locked down environment with low levels of customization for the employee. With the cloud virtual servers, it is necessary to standardize the PC experience, deliver the same applications or just the approved applications by the business and not allowing employees to load their own software into the cloud virtual server. So for companies that want to allow their employees a high level of their own personal customization, to be able to load games, to be able to load personal software or any old thing they download from the internet, the cloud virtual servers may not be a great fit for that case. Because all the employees are working off a single server, we need to tightly control that to make sure that unauthorized software doesn't introduce an issue that could affect the experience for everybody. Another big decision factor for businesses that we talk about are those with remote offices. We have a huge benefit with cloud virtual servers and remote offices where it's so much easier to deploy remote offices and get those people in those remote offices or those remote field workers the tools and other utilities they need with the cloud virtual servers. All right, well, let's move on now that we've looked at some decision factors and look at a case study. So the customer we're going to be looking at today is one that we've worked with, and they're an Omaha-based franchise company that provides high-end cabinetry and countertop resurfacing to the Omaha and Lincoln area. And this customer has 10 employees in Omaha, and kind of the situation was they were facing some very frequent server crashes. They had an on-site server. It was having a lot of issues. It was getting older. When these servers would crash, it would leave the employees unable to work, and they were told they needed to purchase a new server. The server was only about 3 years old, so they were a little frustrated by that. And they were also a little frustrated that it was going to be over $10,000, for just 10 employees to replace the server hardware, buy the updated server software license, and pay for the labor for a technician to come in and do the work. So this prompted the company, we talked about some of those triggers. This prompted the company to say, is there a better way? Should we look at some of this new cloud technology we keep hearing about? And this then did lead them to the cloud virtual server. So they put in the cloud virtual server. They moved their custom applications. They had a couple applications that were provided by the franchisor of their business to the cloud virtual server. So this included a custom pricing application that could quickly price out the cabinets and the countertops and the square footage and all of those types of things. The CRM application where they could track all of their customers and leads and things like that again was provided by the franchisor. And then they also used the standard desktop version of QuickBooks. So they moved all of those applications to the cloud. and they also upgraded all of their Office employees to the same version of Office 2010. Previously, they had some of their employees had Office 2003, some of them had 2007, and they even had one employee on Office 2010. So everybody had a different version, which created some challenges in sharing documents and some confusion and frankly some jealousy by some of the employees on the older versions. You know, why don't I have the updated version that some of these other people do? So what they did is rather than spend around $4,000 up front to buy 10 copies of Microsoft Office Professional, they paid an Office, they rented the Office applications on the cloud virtual server on a monthly basis. So in addition, then the company will always be available, since they're paying that Office rental, to deploy the latest version of the software when it comes out. So Microsoft's working on Office 2012 right now. If and when it comes out and they decide they want to move to it, they can move the entire company to it in just a few minutes with very little hassle, not even having to deploy a technician out to install it. One of the other real big benefits for this company is when we started working with them, they only had the one office in Omaha. But soon later, they acquired the franchise rights to Lincoln, Nebraska, and they needed to open up an office there. So this was a beautiful thing. It was a very, very easy thing to do. They simply ordered an internet line and just grabbed a PC that was ready to go, plugged it in, opened a web browser, went to the cloud virtual server, and they had their new office up and running with all the same applications, all the same data, all the same tools that their people in Omaha did. So that kind of comes to the end. Looks like we're right at about a half an hour, which is where we've committed to keeping it, and we wanted to leave some time open for questions at the end. Steve, have we had any questions that have come up?
We do. To go on, the first question we have is regarding an application. The question is, does AutoCAD have a cloud option yet?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not aware of that. We do have a couple of customers that have deployed AutoCAD, just the full desktop version, into the cloud. They were fairly light users of AutoCAD, where they just needed to look at drawings and make some minor adjustments, and really it worked fairly well. I have worked with some other customers before that were very heavy into AutoCAD and did very complex drawings. And in that case, we did more of a hybrid cloud strategy for them, where we would put some of their applications and some of their systems in the cloud, but then keep AutoCAD locally for a couple of those power users that really needed the full power of a local computing experience. Thanks, Drew.
Second question we have is, can the cloud be used in a PC/Mac mixed environment?
Sure. No, another great question. It certainly can. The Macs, I assume the question is talking more about I've got Macs and PCs in my business, and not I need to run Mac applications in the cloud. The applications that we run on the cloud virtual server, at least in the way we've got it set up in our organization, those are our Windows-only applications. So, and most of the business applications are Windows-only anyway. But Macs on the client side, Macs that your employees are sitting in front of certainly can access the cloud virtual server really with no issues. That being said, the Macs are quite a bit more expensive than the PCs, and if you're just using it to access the cloud anyway, my advice would be to not spend the extra money on a Mac and just put a good quality but not real high-end PC in to save the money.
Another good question here is, can you talk a little bit more about security of information on the cloud? To drill down a little bit, we currently use a VPN for select employees, but if all employees can potentially access your documents, how do you control security from a legal and audit standpoint?
Sure. That's certainly a multifaceted question. It's real similar to a VPN, where a VPN, an employee can connect into your corporate network with the servers and everything that's on site, and that's controlled typically by a password. And the cloud is really the same thing. After the employee connects to the VPN, they've got free reign on the network. It's the same with the cloud. After they connect into the server, then they have access to do anything that they do normally. We still have the ability to lock down files and folders and applications, so you can say, this class of employee only has access to these folders and these applications and these data. where these employees may have access to more sensitive data, such accounting data and other strategic data for the organization. There certainly is an audit trail too that can be turned on. We can tell you when employees accessed the system, what files and folders they went into, just like we can do with other server technology. And then just depending on the needs, really, the security can be ratcheted up from there. We do have one customer that's a financial customer that has a lot of regulatory requirements, and they've added in things like encryption and email encryption, and they have to be audited by their standards body to make sure they're compliant and they're still able to operate as their financial company. But it does come down to, in the end, that if you're giving employees access to certain resources, then at some level you definitely have to trust that employee. And it's a really multifaceted question, and it might be something that, if there's further questions, I could certainly go offline with that person and drill down a little bit more to see where they're coming from.
Sure. Actually, another question kind of related to the security is, who owns the information on the cloud? Specifically, we have confidential information that we sign legal agreements not to share. Would the cloud violate that agreement?
It really shouldn't. Like I mentioned, some of the regulations and other things, especially like with that financial company I mentioned, they're up to date with the cloud. But it is something you need to ask yourself as a business owner, that if you're looking at using a cloud infrastructure services provider, you want to take a really close look at that company. Are they financially stable? Do they have the confidentiality agreements and things like that? Ask them the question, what happens if I'm not happy with you? How do I get my data back? Because that data does exist in essentially the private cloud they're running. You need to understand those things, that they can't just shut it off someday and really lock you out of being able to move that somewhere else. But to answer the question on who owns it, you need to make sure that you own that data, because obviously that's the lifeblood of your company.
Perfect. Just one more quick question here, Drew. In terms of getting the information back, say somebody uses the cloud and it turns out that it's not a fit for their particular business, how hard is it to go from cloud back to server?
It's not overly challenging. It would be similar to the process from taking it from the server and putting it in the cloud. Because we're still talking, at least in the scenario we talked about today, Microsoft technologies, all the applications could simply be reinstalled in an on-site server. The data moved back, and it converted back. So there's always that potential there. If you do get into it and you decide, hey, it's not for us, there is always the potential to go back with only a moderate amount of complexity.
Perfect. Well, we are running short on time, but if there are any further questions, please don't hesitate to shoot Drew or myself an email. We certainly, or feel free to give either of us a call. We certainly can address any more questions you might have, or drill down on some of the ones that you've currently asked. We hope that you've enjoyed this session and found some value in the content. We will be sending out a recording of this session so you can review it. We do encourage you to forward it on to anybody that might benefit from the information, and certainly do hope that you'll be interested in future webinar events. The next webinar that we will be discussing will take place on April 12th at 10 a.m. It'll be an introduction to Office 365. Office 365 is a new collaboration tool from Microsoft that might be of interest and benefit to your business. So again, we hope that you'll find these next future sessions of interest. We hope that you found this session of value, and we do certainly appreciate your time today.